languages at Cheadle Hulme School, where he's also Director of Partnerships. Cheadle Hulme School is near Stockport. If you came to our conference 2 years ago, you'll have been to his school. He's a long-serving committee member of ISMLA. Himself was formerly Vice-Chair, and he's now our Partnerships lead. He's also an educational director and co-founder of the organisation, charity in fact, Cricket Beyond Boundaries, which is a charity which encourages social mobility through the vehicle of cricket. He spends his time with his young family, walking his dog, watching rugby of both religions, and being a cricket nerd. That's his words, not mine. I'm really also grateful to thisislanguage.com for sponsoring this evening's webinar. Thisislanguage.com, if you don't know it, is a tool for teaching and learning. Offers authentic language videos for your classroom that students can access via their own accounts, either at home or indeed at school. It's a really great and efficient way of setting and marking work. And there are three things which I think that make This Is Language stand out. Firstly, that all the videos feature young people speaking their language spontaneously and truthfully in really authentic speech. It's very efficient, so it's designed by teachers for teachers, and it's all really closely aligned with GCSE and IGCSE curriculum, and the results and marks record themselves, which is great. And the third principle, I guess, is inspiration. It's pretty academically rigorous, and they're reviewed by language professionals with games, points, and friendly competition, both between individuals, classes, and in fact schools, that keep students engaged. You can find out more about thisislanguage.com on their website, which, as you can see, is thisislanguage.com, on Twitter at thisislanguage, and you're welcome, I'm told, to email the team at schools@thisislanguage.com if you have any questions. So we're very grateful, for their support, and I'm delighted to hand over to you, John. Thank you very much.
Can I confirm that my screen is sharing?
Certainly is.
Yeah, good. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you, Ollie, for the introduction. Yeah, I'm sort of head of languages at CHS, and I've been there since I was an NQT. CHS is an all-through school, so 3 to 18, co-educational, independent day school just outside of Stockport.
Excuse me,
this
John.
session. Yes.
I'd like to put your video on, possibly.
Oh, apologies. I should add that we use Google Meet at my school, and I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to Zoom. Let me just get back to you. My video should be on, Kevin, according to what I've got here. Okay. Okay.
Back to screen sharing.
Okay, so we'll keep going if that's okay, because my video's on from what I can see here. Okay, so I would like to, in this session, share what we do at Cheadle Hulme School with regards to partnerships, and also welcome your views on what we can do as an organisation, as for ISMLA, to facilitate partnerships for modern languages. I'd first like to start with how I got into this. So about 5 years ago, I wanted to push what I was referring to as outreach for languages in my department. So the person I always went to for advice on all things languages at that stage was our very own Nick Mayer. So at an ISMLA conference, I said, look, Nick, I want to push, I want to really go for it with outreach with languages. I think we can offer a lot in my department. And he said, well, the first thing you've got to do is not call it outreach, because of all the negative connotations of that word. And he was absolutely right. And if we just imagine this hobnob here, this idea of calling it outreach, I think just implies this notion of crumb sharing. Here we are, this wonderful biscuit, this hobnob. I think Peter Kay called it the marine of biscuits, because it can be dunked so many times without any problems. And what we'll do is we've got this wonderful product, and we'll throw a few crumbs. And ultimately, that is not what partnership is about. Partnership is more about this. Partnership is about share. Yes, we are still that wonderful hobnob, but actually the school we are partnering with, or the other, or whatever the organisation is that we're partnering with, offers so much as well. They could be equal. They are equally as good, and they could be our bourbon. That's enough of that biscuit analogy, but I'm sure you get my point. Okay. Now, useful organisations for partnerships are, I would say, Schools Together, which is that overview for partnerships and across all subject areas, all areas of school. I would say though that is sometimes I think schools do use that as a marketing tool. So when you are looking at what's done on there, I would suggest do take some things with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it's a really useful vehicle for sharing partnerships and sharing ideas on partnerships. More specifically for languages, the British Council, of course, is a really good source for international partnerships, especially. Okay. So what do we do at Cheadle Hulme? Well, I suppose like all things at the moment, let's talk pre-COVID, and then we'll take it from there. So rewinding to about this time last year, where were we? Well, we have a lot of partner primary schools in the Stockport area. There were only three of those partner primary schools who prioritised languages as something they'd like to drive. So we really decided to work closely with those partner schools. Mistakes we made. First of all, we went, and it's part of that outreach analogy again, I suppose. It was an idea of, oh, here's this, we can offer you this. Isn't it brilliant? There you go. Actually, a key thing to successful partnerships was to treat each of those three schools as having their own individual needs, and for us to be flexible in how we worked with those schools. So we started off delivering Spanish, French, or German, whatever the schools wanted, but actually what we ended up doing was providing a sustainable model for those schools, working with the teachers to enable teachers in those schools to feel confident in delivering languages themselves. We also do a lot of co-curricular work with local schools. So the sort of highest profile one would be the debating competition, which we host at CHS and have done since 2007 for A-level students in French, German, Spanish, and Russian. This was inspired by an ISMLA conference back in 2006 at the City of London School for Boys, where we saw this in action and took it north. Similarly, we have a performance morning for years 7 to 10. This is working with our three state secondary partners, and we have students come in and deliver a performance for 10 minutes in our theatre, and we have a little fun judging panel. We give various different categories, and it's in any language, including languages that aren't represented on the curriculum. Okay, which for bilingual students to celebrate that linguistic diversity in the Manchester area. And that again was an idea we stole it from Davina's school, actually, when she was at North London Collegiate School with the performance evening for Spanish. And then our international partner schools, we have 6 of them. We have more now, actually, strangely, from COVID, which I'll talk about in a little while. They were generally a traditional exchange for the most part, but also for our school in Madrid and our school in Essen, they were part of residential trips where we did in those two cities. We would spend, rather than a traditional exchange, our students would go and spend time with students at their school, and also we'd have some shared activities. Another thing we would be quite big on for a number of years is charity links for languages, partnerships with charities. You can see there on the screen, we have toilet twinning. So what you see there is a picture of our toilet door in the language block. The boys' toilets there are twinned with a loo in Côte d'Ivoire. We fund a toilet in a community in Côte d'Ivoire, and the girls' toilet is twinned with a toilet that we fund in Honduras. And obviously that has curriculum links because we have French and Spanish on the curriculum in year 7, and we have a little panel of students who drive the fundraising for those to maintain those toilets, and who then communicate with as best we can with those communities, and so it works really well on the curriculum. Now, And I think, and that's part of another thing with which I'm going to make a point of, which is, I think partnership, our subject area is so fantastic for partnerships, and it's a way of us raising our profile across the school. Because what's happened at our school is we've had issues with toilets. For some reason, young boys in particular like to be mischievous in toilets and cause all sorts of trouble, and I don't think that's a new thing. I think it's been happening in schools for a long time. We found that issue has almost gone away, because every one of our toilets in the school now is twinned through toilet twinning, and students now think twice before they misbehave in toilets. So it's had a wider impact in the school, which is sort of thanks to languages, we'd like to think, because we started it. And another charity we work quite a lot with is Fundación Pies Descalzos. For the non-Hispanics among you, that's the Barefoot Foundation, which is an education charity based in Colombia, and it's Shakira's charity. We've been working with them for a while. Unfortunately, I haven't got to meet Shakira yet, but here's hoping. And effectively, they have I think it's about 6 schools in Colombia, and through that charity you can sponsor a child through their education, and that's a really good way to bring in to encourage comparisons on the curriculum between our school and another school. It's a really good way to make potentially dry curriculum topics a bit more exciting and a bit more linked to the target language countries. Okay, so then COVID happens, and I think part of me thought, oh gosh, we can't do partnerships now because we just need to focus on this challenge that we have. But then I picked myself up and thought, actually, no, partnerships are probably more important now than ever before. So what we did was we'd already committed to launching our SCIT partnership and we'd set up with 4 state partner schools. And what we wanted to do with our SCIT partnership, and that's a school-centered initial teacher training, if you're not familiar with SCIT, what we wanted to do with ours to make it stand out was to bring our international partners into that sort of teacher training framework as well, so our trainees could have time to spend some time abroad and work with English teachers in our partner schools abroad, and to make themselves stand out, I suppose, in application. So through that structure of partners, we've been able to do so much more. Because I mean, you may have read the piece that I put in the newsletter back in the autumn. I think having SCIT as a framework for partnership is brilliant. However, if your SCIT partnerships is based on teacher training alone, I think that it's really precarious, because ultimately you could be one bad trainee, let's say, away from the partnership breaking up. It needs to be based on much more, and we've done that with regards lots of CPD opportunities, lots of co-curricular opportunities, as we've seen with the debating competition, with performance morning. And what we've also done is through that group of schools, the international partners and our local partners, whilst we haven't been able to meet up, of course, just like we're doing now, it's been great just to get everyone on a Google Meet and share. And it started off with, we've all got this shared experience at the moment globally of the pandemic, but from that there's been so many other opportunities for CBD on various different levels. And again, it's something that started in languages from those partner schools that we had for exchanges, and it's gone across the school, and it's risen. The profile of languages has risen in our school as a consequence, I would suggest. Where I think we are seen as, well, we know it, that we're often at the forefront of pedagogy, but I think now at my school, I think the wider school has seen it as well. On a slightly less glamorous level, but I think actually probably the most important part of this has been just the ability to resource share. We're a Google school, and originally we couldn't share things outside of our sort of school Google system. As you see, my IT is not my strong point. That's probably why my camera isn't working. But still, what we've now been able to do with our partner schools is share resources really easily outside with other Google schools, and we've agreed with our partners that we've got. We were able to, because we were using Google before for a lot of stuff, we were able to advise them when they went into lockdown, and they're all Google schools now as well. Okay. Now, for a language assistant, and again, the opportunities with remote learning this have meant that we have been able to offer for a language assistant to our partner state schools for it's just an hour a week to work with the sixth form students, but it means a lot to those students. Now, you might think, well, isn't that just an example of outreach? That's not partnership, that's outreach. Well, actually, I would challenge that, because there are unforeseen benefits of this, because we are, because of dissatisfaction with Cambridge exams during this period. We're moving away from pre-U next year, and it's coming to an end anyway, isn't it? So we're moving to AQA A level. Now, it so happens that our language assistant for French and Spanish, they both want to go into teaching. They have been able to develop their skills with regards to knowledge of the AQA A level. They've also been able to bring the experience from the partner schools of the AQA A level to us to inform our transition to A level. So it's worked really well, and it's given them a variety of experience. We've had a long-running series of talks, guest speaker talks at Cheadle Hulme School called Language Matters, and feel free to steal that name if you want to use it in your room. I'm not in your school. I'm not precious, and that's been long running. But what COVID has been able to do, has allowed us to do, has been to share these talks with our community of schools. So we haven't done that with all of them because some of them are very relevant to our context. But on the picture there, Manchester's language diversity, that was something that was of interest to all of our partner schools in our Manchester area, and actually in our international partners came as well. Their students were interested in that. So yeah, that's been a sort of hidden benefit. Don't forget, of course, a really easy way into partnerships, I suggest, is sharing competitions. Now, and this sort of started for me last year with the ISMLA creative writing competition, where I just sent an email saying, look, are any of your students interested in this, particularly year 10 lower 6th students? And the response was really positive for that, because students and actually particularly from year 11 students last year, I think it'll be more year 10 students this year, but year 11 students last year who suddenly didn't have an exam to do but wanted to perhaps go and do sixth form languages at a college or wherever. From Easter last year, they had no language work. So the fact that they could just do this competition, and then and it was a really good way to collaborate with other teachers, because we formed a little judging panel to have our internal competition before we selected someone from each language to go to the national competition. And that can be obviously replicated in any of those competitions. Stephen Spender has just, I think, launched last week for the 2021. There's the detail of the ISMLA creative writing competition on our website, although I'm not sure the website's, there seems to be an issue with the website today, but I'm sure that's in hand. And you might be know Mother Tongue is operating, and recently Linguistics Olympiad. What we're also doing during this period is, in light of our experience in the primary sector, we're looking at developing a slightly new approach to language learning in primaries, which builds on things like the Discovering Language course at St Paul's and other similar things, which is a more of a global approach to language learning, working with Norwich School on that. Okay, so I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it was worth my time and effort. I mean, you'll have heard in Ollie's introduction, I'm quite a busy person, not in my personal life, but also in all the other things I do. But I think it's really worthwhile. And these are the 4 reasons, and you guys will no doubt think of more, why I think it's worthwhile. Firstly, there are so many learning opportunities for our students, for both sides of the partnership. And crucially, learning opportunities which bring students out of their comfort zone, and learning opportunities which give students the chance to fail, which is talked about so often as a key aspect of learning, but how often do we actually give students that opportunity? There are also crucial learning opportunities for staff as well on all sides of the partnerships, because and through CPD, all the CPD benefits, but also those lower profile resource sharing and the ability now to just observe a lesson remotely, all these sort of things. There's so many opportunities for staff within that. I talked about how partnerships can really raise the profile of languages in your school, and I'm sure that those present who do partnerships have seen that in other ways as well. And I think a key aspect of partnerships is this community building, whether that's a local community, whether it's a national community like we have with ISMLA, or whether it goes beyond, crosses boundaries as well, crosses borders. 2 key words I would really emphasize for successful partnerships, though, are clarity. From the start, when you're setting out your partnership, both sides really clear about what they want to achieve from that. If it's a bit vague and it's led by just one person in the partnerships or one party, I think it's gonna be tough tough to keep it successful. The other key thing, and COVID has shown us this, is the importance of flexibility. What works for a partnership one year won't necessarily work the following year. And that idea of having, well, this is what we do, this is what we offer, I don't think it really works either. You've got to be flexible in what you can provide to offer to different partners, as they have to be flexible in what they can offer to you. Okay, so nationally, I think this was something I've taken from the language trends quote. So this is it shows that actually links between state primary schools and state secondary schools for languages have dwindled in recent years. You can see that since 2014, it's gone down from 54% in 2014 to 45%. Now there may be good reason for that. There may be other priorities. Obviously, things like lack of funding, so it's perhaps not through not wanting to, but that is obviously where we as an independent sector can be supportive here to encourage these partnerships, because in setting up partnerships, it's not just about independent school to state school, it also encourages state school to state school partnerships, as well as forming these sort of partnership hubs that I think we can do as independent schools. That hub might be through a skit, but obviously not every independent school can have a skit, because then we'd just be overwhelmed by teacher training. But that's certainly a helpful framework. So we put out a survey just recently, and the sample isn't great, we've got 28, but just to see where we stand as an organisation. So you can see from the slide here, sorry it's quite small, that about a quarter of our members have partnerships with at least one state primary school, okay, and nearly a third of our membership have partnerships with one or more state secondary schools, okay. That doesn't go into detail about what those partnerships involve, but in the survey that did show the various things, and it was really pleasing to see the variety of things that we are doing, and I can share this in more detail after the findings of this survey. Onto the competition. So the original writing competition coming up. Interestingly, only 14.3% of, I mean, as you can see, there are only 21 responses to this, but I would have thought there could be more schools who are involving sort of nearby state schools in this competition, because I don't think it's not that onerous to do that. It's just an email saying, here's the link, have you got any students? And I think it can build from that. So I would encourage more schools to consider involving their state partners in that competition or in other language competitions. Okay. What about the partnerships between ISMLA members? Because we have a key structure here, and we're already operating in partnership with so many ISMLA members. Here we are at a CPD session as an organisation. We can, and there's another one next week, and there was one last week. So we're already operating in partnership. So don't we need to acknowledge that, of course. Now the sort of idea I had for further progress with that was the languages outside of French, German, Spanish, and actually some colleagues would even include German in this. So languages outside of French, German, Spanish, I'm thinking Italian, Russian, etc. Now there are schools in our membership who still offer those languages. Okay, that's one thing. We've also seen during this period that remote learning can work. It might not be our preferred way to teach, but it can work, and it can reach students anywhere. So my thought was, if it was cost neutral for these schools, because actually participating schools their students would pay for this language provision, could we have teachers from the schools that have these languages offering some remote courses to our wider membership? That's the concept, and obviously we would need to build on that. But the idea, and that would be outside of the time, so it might be 8 o'clock in the morning, it might be after school finishes, but that would be, the details would be needed to be ironed out. So when I put that in the survey, I was really reassured that a third of schools there say, yeah, we'd like to offer those. And notice that's very generous, because that's actually more than half of the schools who do offer languages outside of French, German and Spanish, if you look at that pie chart, would be willing to offer that. Now, and similarly, of those surveyed, more than half of those surveys said actually if that were available, that we would like to use that. So that was quite reassuring, and perhaps something you can discuss in the breakout groups in a second. International partners, just under half of the response had an international partner. I think this is actually encouraging. It's on my sense is it's on the increase in our sector that we're sort of having had a period where we thought, oh, don't want to go near an exchange. I think we're rediscovering how important the exchanges are for that key experience in language learning. That's my hope anyway. So there we go. So ISMLA and partnerships. This is what I propose we as an organisation can do. You may think of other things as well. I think we can support with good practice and working close in tandem with Schools Together, the organisation I mentioned at the start. I think we can being aware of our members, we can connect schools to facilitate collaboration. Okay. And I think we can promote these common opportunities for our member schools and partners, for example, like the competitions, like the CPD. For example, today in the CPD, I believe it's not just ISMLA members, for example, we've extended it beyond our membership, and that's absolutely great. And that was definitely the case for the sessions we've had during this series of sessions, which have perhaps been of more relevance beyond the independent sector. And the fourth point links to what I was just saying before is I think we can widen access to languages across our membership, and languages which might be viewed as perhaps being under threat on the curriculum in the UK. So if it's okay, Kevin, are you there, Kevin?
I certainly am here, John.
Good, good. So these are the questions that I'd like us to consider in our breakout groups, if that's okay. First question, and if you want to take a picture of this, so you're not having to try and remember what the questions were, I encourage you to do that. So I think, why are partnerships important for modern languages in your view? What partnerships do you currently have, and how would you assess their strength? And would you consider developing partnerships further? And finally, how could ISMLA support schools in building partnerships? And what do you think of the suggestions that I've made? I propose, Kevin, that perhaps